Continuing with this presentation with step 4, packaging the message. Packaging the message essentially is a definition of what medium the message will be presented on, whether it's a 1950s looking television set or a radio, or most likely nowadays via the internet. There are some questions to ask, considering what format might be possible, might be appropriate to use, depending on the demographics or the target audiences may demand or different formats for the message to be presented. So there are some questions to ask, such as, is it important that the people see this message repeatedly? Can it be produced with existing resources? Will it achieve the objective? Etc. So there's a lot of considerations in that. Some examples, the possibilities. By far the most common means in which messages in an outreach program are delivered is through print, and commonly the print media is widely used. Even in the year 2014, it still continues to be a very important part of the media and the communications world. In the context of watershed studies and environmental and community environmental studies, one of the best print resources is the Sunday advertising paper, often called a penny saver, or here called West Side News, which is really more a vehicle for advertising than news, but they do add a significant amount of community news, and they're usually willing to consider information about watershed and other environmental activities. Other possibilities for medium are what this document calls stuff, which isn't a bad name for it, giveaways or promotional items such as magnets and refrigerator magnets, coffee mugs, t-shirts, and stuff. These are very useful in that they're durable, and and if you pick the right item, people will have it with them and be exposed to the message numerous amounts of time. So that is one benefit of stuff. The professional media, which does actually include penny saver type magazines, as well as standard newspapers, TV and radio, is also not impossible to use as a medium to distribute the message. They're always, and sometimes it's easier or more, or sometimes it's harder, or just a matter of luck as to being able to convince the publishers or editors to include your message in it. But it is still a viable means of delivering a message. The internet is obviously extremely important, much more so than when this actual document was written. I believe it's over 10 years old. So the internet is probably the most potent source of, or the most potent means of distributing a message, because it can reach very widely at a very low cost. That also creates the problem of being unable to have your message rise to consciousness and not got lost in the mass of other stuff on the internet. The fifth step is pretty well related to the message and the medium, and that is distributing the message. And that's maybe more along the lines of more specific actions with regard to the message. Distribution ideas such as are listed here, and again, every audience is perhaps going to have a more or less effective means of distribution for the message. Certain newsletters, through schools, through posters, through the internet, all of these ways of distribution are probably going to be specific to different portions of a target audience. We still do have a mail system in the United States, although it seems to be getting less significant over time. It still is a way that it's possible to reach everybody in a community or a geography, and at a generally reasonable price. It may or may not, mail may or may not get the attention that it used to from the recipient, but it is still a way to consider delivering a message. Other ways to deliver a message are via particular businesses that have bulletin boards, or perhaps have seminars, or as part of their business plan have a certain information giving relationship with the community. Thinking of the home stores like Lowe's and Home Depot. So those are just some of the ways in which the message can be distributed or delivered. Finally, it's important to consider an evaluation plan for the outreach. It's always essential, and again, evaluation is a part of any process that gets done, including all the other processes we've discussed in the course this semester. Of course you want to evaluate. Any publicity plan, any outreach plan probably involved a substantial amount of effort, resources, maybe money, and it's important to find out what worked and what didn't work. In the green box on this page are a number of questions that may be useful in providing, that might lead one towards a process of evaluation of the outreach plan. Moving onward, there's different forms of evaluation. Finally, when all is said and done, another kind of meta-evaluation can be very useful. There's means and some of the questions that could possibly be asked to identify and evaluate each of the steps of an outreach plan are listed on this page. For instance, goals and objectives. Way to evaluate the choice of goals and objectives is perhaps will we be able to evaluate whether the goals or whether the objectives were actually achieved, and onward down through this whole pink box. Finally, for evaluation. Further on in this document are some worksheets which are intended to provide some help in organizing an outreach, the development of an outreach plan. Most people tend to want to develop their own worksheets and such, and people are more comfortable working with materials that they developed. So I'm going to skip through these very quickly. There's a worksheet for each of the steps, and we'll be to the bottom of them pretty shortly. And the remainder of this document from EPA includes a lot of information about a subject that's even further from perhaps what you think of when I would say watershed science, and that's some tips about improving the quality of various outreach materials that are produced, such as composition and layout of newsletters, etc., having good text and such. There's a lot of very useful software tools that help people nowadays create nicely laid out and well organized brochures, documents, posters, etc. that have good formatting. There's a few tidbits in here that I think are useful to point out that I've seen employed with considerable success in watershed projects. Mascots. The puppets and comics and the water wizard and various other mascots that people have invented have been very useful. The use of children's artwork is one that has a particular appeal, I've found, in this part of the country especially, but it's pretty universal. For an example of that is this document written by EPA, which is addressed toward a general audience, probably a school-age audience, which does use children's artwork to capture attention and build a little bit of a mood around the document. Logos and letterheads are useful. Having a business card to provide touch point, communication point for people is very useful. And then the document reviewing here goes on to give several suggestions of other types of materials that can be presented and what are some tips on making them effective. Flyers, posters, tips for better displays, better posters. Billboards is probably a little bit on the traveling billboard on the truck is probably beyond the scope of Watershed. Bumper stickers certainly are not, and t-shirts are certainly not. And of course, wow, large, extra large, and extra extra large, popular sizes. There's always these experiential discoveries that people have, many of which are summarized nicely in this document, which could be a resource for something you do in the public outreach area in the future, regardless of what your particular career happens to be. 100% cotton is best. Long sleeve varieties in colder climates such as ours. All very useful information. Continuing onward in this, everything, in many cases, events will be staged around Watershed Outreach. Everything from early in the project, in which there are scoping meetings and information gathering meetings, all the way up to the end of the project where results will be presented to the public. So events are an important consideration. Of course, the details of cost can be skipped through here. They're probably too specific. Some tips here which are very important about how to work with the media. Again, this is drifting well beyond our course into the communications area, but how to work with media, how to prepare something for them or make a news release for them that has a chance of getting on the air or getting out in the media. What is news? Again, very useful tips for those who want to discover, who want to make use of this resource. Media does control public awareness and public perception, so it's important to work with them. Moving onward, past press releases and news conferences. We have a self-test at the end of this as well, which I'd encourage you to take a shot at. And the answers are actually, you'll discover, are at the bottom, but it's still interesting to take a quiz and pretend at first that you don't know the answers and see how well you do, and then review with the quiz answers. By the way, this document is available on Angel under Course Materials under Watershed Academy. It's one of the documents in there. It's called New Getting, now I can't remember what it's called, but it starts with the title New Getting in Step is the title of this, about public outreach.